Have you ever felt like your life just came to a standstill? As though everything around you paused, no matter how much effort you put in, how hard you try, push, stretch beyond your limits, and still, nothing moves forward? You look around and see others landing jobs, getting married, ticking off dreams from their list, and you? Just stuck. That's when the ache begins to build in your chest. A quiet, poisonous thought creeps in. God must have forgotten about me. Maybe I don't matter at all. But let me tell you something that could change how you see all of this. Just because you can't see anything happening, doesn't mean God isn't at work. Sometimes, when everything looks still on the outside, it's because something profound is being shaped on the inside. Look at David's life. He was chosen, set apart, anointed in front of his own brothers. He carried a mighty promise. But what followed? Silence, exile, injustice, hiding, loneliness. For years, David didn't live like a king. He lived as a fugitive, chased down, misunderstood, disregarded. Anyone observing his life during that phase would have assumed he failed. Yet, it was in those quiet, hidden years that God birthed the most soul-stirring psalms. Out of that pain came deep intimacy. In obscurity, the heart of a king was formed. And maybe that's exactly where you are right now, waiting endlessly for results that never seem to come. Sending out job applications and getting no responses. Praying for a door to open that stays shut. Holding together a relationship that feels like it's crumbling. Asking God, what more do you want from me? The answer might not arrive in the way you expect. But think about clay in the hands of a potter. It gets pressed, shaped, flattened, trimmed, and only after all that, it becomes something useful, beautiful, strong. The pain you're feeling right now isn't the end. It's part of the crafting process. God is preparing you to carry something bigger. And here's why that's so crucial. Once you understand that this time of waiting, silence, and closed doors isn't a punishment but preparation, something shifts inside of you. Anxiety begins to lose its grip. Fear starts to melt away. The urge to compare your life to others fades. Because you finally see that what God is doing in your life is entirely unique. He doesn't work with carbon copies. He works with purpose. Let's be honest, it's deeply frustrating to see someone else receive what you've been praying for years. That couple that barely knows each other and is already getting married. That friend who just started and already got promoted. That person who doesn't even seem to believe, yet they're already reaping. And you fast, pray, strive, and still, you're waiting. But ask yourself, could you truly carry what you're asking for right now? Is your inner foundation strong enough for the weight of what God plans to give you? Sometimes, God delays the blessing so it doesn't destroy you. And this is where trust comes in. Faith isn't believing when everything makes sense. Faith is choosing to believe when nothing does. Faith is looking at the invisible and treating it as though it's already here. Faith is saying, even when I don't understand, I'll still trust. That kind of faith moves heaven. Have you heard of Joni Eareckson Tada? At 17, a misjudged dive left her paralyzed from the neck down. At first, she wanted her life to end. She felt completely hopeless. But it was in that dark, still place that she clung to God with everything she had. She learned to paint with her mouth, authored numerous books, became an international speaker, and now inspires millions across the globe. What once felt like punishment became the stage for God's glory. And what if this chapter of your life that you so deeply resent is actually the exact space God has chosen to prepare you for something extraordinary? What if, in this silence, He's teaching you to truly listen? What if, in this barren place, He's helping you grow roots that go deep into the soil of faith? Because trees that grow too quickly without a strong root system collapse in the first strong wind. Think carefully. How many times did you believe you wouldn't make it? Yet here you are, still standing. How many times have you believed it was the end, only to realize it wasn't? That in itself is proof that God never let go of you. Even when you couldn't see the pen move, He never stopped writing your story. Maybe today you're crying in the shower, falling asleep with a lump in your throat, forcing smiles at work, hiding the pain even from yourself. But God sees it. He hears it. And more than that, He acts, even when you feel nothing. He doesn't move according to our schedule. He works on His flawless timetable. And when that appointed time arrives, there will be nothing, absolutely nothing, that can block what He has planned for you. So don't confuse his silence with absence. Don't mistake the waiting for abandonment. God is scripting something far greater than you could ever imagine. And this painful chapter isn't your ending. It's the moment you begin to realize the strength that has always been within you. It's when you learn to trust without seeing. When you discover you've never truly been alone. And that's precisely why giving up now is not an option. Because once God finishes this chapter, everything will finally make sense. Every tear, every weight, every unanswered question will find its place. And you will look back, eyes brimming with tears, and whisper, "Now I understand." God never stopped working. He was preparing me all along. How many times have you stood in front of the mirror, ashamed of the reflection staring back at you? How often has the weight of your own mistakes seemed heavier than your ability to begin again? So many people carry the burden of guilt from 10, 20, 30 years ago, as though they were sentenced to live forever in silent punishment. And the saddest part is, many believe God sees them that way too. That he turned his back. That his plans ended. That his disappointment was too great to ever restore. But there is only one truth. God never gives up on those he loves. And that includes you. Most people have tasted bitter regret at some point. A relationship destroyed by pride. A word spoken in anger that wounded someone deeply loved. An addiction that consumed years and eroded self-worth. A moment of silence when speech was needed. A reckless decision when patience was called for. Does any of that resonate with you? Because there are thousands who live this same cycle, waking up with regret, filling the day with distractions just to avoid thinking, and going to bed hoping guilt will fade on its own. But it doesn't. Because you weren't created to ignore your wounds, but to be healed from them. And healing begins the moment you accept that your mistakes don't define you. Your failure isn't your identity. Your past is not a life sentence. Your value has not diminished because you fell. Look at Peter's story. He walked beside Jesus. He heard divine wisdom firsthand. He saw miracles with his own eyes. He was invited to walk on water. Yet even he denied Jesus. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. He swore he didn't even know the one who loved him most. Can you imagine the pain of realizing you betrayed your dearest friend, your savior, at the darkest hour of his life? Now imagine the silence that followed, the shame, the desire to dissipate, the belief that it was all over. But when Jesus rose again, he sought out Peter, not to rebuke him, but to restore him. He looked into the eyes of a shattered man and asked, "Peter, do you love me?" 3 times, just as Peter had denied him 3 times. And then Jesus gave Peter the task of caring for his flock. He placed the future of the church in the hands of the one who had denied him. What does that tell you? That God isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for hearts that are open to be made whole again. That includes you. Maybe today you feel like Peter on that night, eyes full of tears, heart crushed by regret, soul whispering, "I'm no longer worthy." But Jesus is right there, on the shore of your failure, asking, "Do you still love me?" If your answer is yes, then your journey is not over. There is still a path ahead. There is still a purpose to be fulfilled. There is still life to be lived. In this world, people are quick to judge. Make one mistake, and suddenly you're labeled weak, careless, a lost cause. But God doesn't operate with labels. He works with restoration. He sees what others overlook. He is not taken aback by your lowest moments. His gaze reaches straight to your heart. Where others see an end, he sees the beginning of something new. Think about your own life. How many times have you tried to change? Promised yourself you'd do things differently, only to fall into old habits again? That doesn't make you a failure. It means you're still fighting. And that quiet struggle is already proof that God hasn't left you. He's still within you, calling you home. If you're hearing this message now, it's because he's still reaching out to you. There's a phrase that says, "A broken vase can be mended, but it will never be the same." In God's kingdom, the opposite is true. A broken vessel, when repaired by the potter's hands, becomes even stronger. Because now, it knows its worth. Now, it recognizes the love behind every careful touch that restored it. Take Joyce Meyer, for example. A woman who endured abuse as a child and spent much of her younger years trying to mask the pain with misguided choices. She could have given in to bitterness, despair, and anger. But she made a different choice. She allowed God to turn her wounds into a fountain of healing for others. Today, She's among the most impactful preachers across the globe. Not because she was flawless, but because she was rebuilt. And you can be too. Maybe your mistake was trusting too much. Maybe you overlooked warning signs. Maybe you hurt others. Or maybe you got hurt trying to please everyone around you. But none of that means God has abandoned you. If you're still breathing, then there's still purpose. There's still a door open. There's still a path ahead. Allow yourself a new beginning. Not just an outer transformation, but an inward renewal. A fresh start that begins with a powerful yet simple act, forgiving yourself. Because God has already forgiven you. He's not waiting for you to settle the score. The price was already paid, upon the cross. Now it's your turn. Try writing a letter to yourself. Not one of blame, but of hope. Speak to yourself as God would, with gentleness, with grace, and with honesty. Tell yourself everything you still have the potential to become. All the wisdom you gained through pain. Then read that letter aloud. Let your own voice remind you that something new is waiting for you. You are not what others did to you. You are not your downfall. You are who God declares you to be. And He says, son, daughter, chosen, redeemed, beloved, and that no one can ever take away from you. Have you ever felt that kind of silence? The one that stings more than any harsh word? The kind where answers are absent, and you wonder if your prayers are even reaching heaven? How many times have you knelt in tears, pouring your soul before God, only to be met with nothing? No sign, no reply, no sense of direction. Just the echo of your voice and the aching uncertainty of what comes next. It's in moments like these that many lose their faith. Not because they stopped believing in God, but because they feared God stopped believing in them. Have you ever felt like that? Like God turned His face away just when you needed Him the most? Ever wanted to cry out, asking why He heals some and stays silent for others, especially you? This feeling is far more common than you might think. And if you're living through this now, please know this: God's silence is never a sign of rejection. Often, it is in the stillness that He speaks most powerfully. Jesus understands this better than anyone. In the Garden of Gethsemane, just before being handed over, He prayed in such agony that His sweat became like drops of blood. He pleaded. He begged. He cried out. And the heavens remained silent. God did not intervene. He did not spare Him the suffering, because there was something greater at stake. And Jesus pressed on, even when no voice answered Him, even when there was no sign of a way out, even when no comfort came. He kept going, because He trusted. It's tough, I know, especially when you're desperate for direction, and all you're met with is darkness. When you're yearning for answers but only find more questions. But what if God's silence is not abandonment, but an invitation to trust without seeing? What if He's calling you into deeper waters, where faith is no longer about signs or affirmations, but about the unshakable certainty that He is present, even when He feels absent? It's in this silence that your faith is being refined. Over and over in Scripture, we see the most powerful miracles come after long stretches when God seemed quiet. Think of the people of Israel. They endured 400 years of silence between the Old and the New Testament. 4 centuries with no prophecies, no divine voices, no clear direction. And when that silence finally broke, Jesus was born, the Savior, the long-awaited miracle. That time of waiting wasn't wasted. It was preparation. And perhaps that's where you find yourself now, in the space between your prayer and its fulfillment, between sorrow and purpose, between the asking and the answer. It might feel like a desert, like you've been left behind, but it's ground rich with potential. You may not see any fruit yet, but beneath the surface, your roots are growing deeper. Think back to all the times you thought you couldn't make it another day, and yet you did. Remember that chapter when everything felt lost, but somehow you kept going. That's proof that, even in silence, God was carrying you. Even when it seemed He wasn't there, He was, in the small details, in your breath, in the strength you didn't know you had. It's vital to understand that God doesn't move according to our schedule, because He's not only concerned with transforming our circumstances, He wants to transform us. He knows the precise moment when the miracle will not just be received, but truly understood. He waits until your heart is ready, not just to receive, but to endure it without being lost in the process. Have you heard of Corrie ten Boom? She and her family helped many Jews escape during the Holocaust. They were imprisoned for it, inside a concentration camp, surrounded by death, hunger, injustice, and despair. She felt as though God had gone silent. But within that place of horror, she uncovered a faith she might never have found in peaceful times. She once said, "Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God." Even in the silence, she trusted, and her story went on to save and inspire lives across the globe. So what about you? Will you let the silence freeze you in place, or lead you deeper into trust? Because right now, something sacred is being formed within you. You may not see it, but it is eternal. That silence might be cultivating a kind of faith you've never known before. It might be shaping your heart to stand strong when everything else crumbles. Try this. For the next 7 days, pick a fixed time each day. Sit in stillness for 5 minutes. Don't ask for anything. Don't complain. Simply be with God in the silence. Breathe deeply. Feel. Allow yourself to just exist in that space. And when negative thoughts try to intrude, gently tell yourself, God is here. Even in the silence, He is here. You'll begin to realize you're not as alone as you thought. Because often, God's silence is the setting for something magnificent about to unfold. He is teaching you to trust without needing immediate proof. He is showing you that His presence isn't defined by noise, but by love. And His love never withdraws, even when our souls are crying out for a sign. You are not being neglected. You are being shaped. And when this season has passed, you'll look back and realize that it was in the stillness that God worked most powerfully within you. There are days when it feels like you can't bear the weight any longer. When everything is too much, too dark, too slow, too heavy. Your heart feels bruised. Your eyes can no longer hold back the tears, and your mind is overwhelmed with one thought. Give up. Stop fighting. Stop hoping. Stop believing. Because when everything hurts, hope can feel like a distant illusion. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever thought that maybe it's time to accept that things won't work out? That perhaps you weren't made to succeed? That this whole idea of faith might not be meant for you? If you have, I need you to listen closely. You are much nearer to a breakthrough than you think. And it's precisely because you're so close that things feel unbearably hard. Before the sun rises, the darkness deepens. Before a flower bursts into bloom, the seed breaks apart in the earth. Before something is born again, grief often comes first. Pain is never the conclusion. It's often the opening act of something brand new. So when it feels like you can't endure another step, it could be because you're right on the threshold of what you've been asking God for all along. What looks like the end might simply be a pause. What looks like collapse might actually be groundwork. The hardest battles often precede the most significant victories. How many times have you almost given up just before something changed unexpectedly? Maybe you've never noticed, but it happens more often than you think. Because the enemy of your soul knows that if you hang on a little longer, you'll witness the sea part. You'll see the rain fall. You'll see the promise fulfilled. So he throws doubt, exhaustion, fear, and shame in your path. He hopes to make you quit before the blessing arrives. But you weren't made to retreat. You were chosen to overcome. Think of Moses, standing at the edge of the sea, with the enemy's army closing in fast. The people around him were already beginning to complain. The pressure must have been overwhelming. But it was when he took a step of faith and raised his staff that the waters parted. The miracle didn't arrive before the struggle. It came at the breaking point. Because God loves to show that when you reach your end, He shows up as more than enough. He doesn't require favorable conditions. He turns barren land into a highway. He draws springs from solid rock. You might feel like your strength is gone. Like everything you've worked for is going to waste. Like no one sees what you've been doing behind the scenes. You've prayed endlessly, given it everything you had, and still, it feels like nothing is changing. But is that really the case? Or have you mistaken the lack of applause for a lack of progress? Often, the most profound growth happens in quiet, deep beneath the surface, hidden from sight. No one sees it, but it's happening. You're maturing, even if you can't tell. God is at work, even when everything seems motionless. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned. If you had met Joseph in that cell and told him, "You'll become the ruler of Egypt," he would probably have laughed through the pain. There appeared to be no link between the dungeon and the throne. But God had a purpose, and every act of injustice was shaping the path. Joseph didn't arrive at his destiny despite the pain. He arrived because of it. The suffering shaped him for the task ahead. Now look at your own life. How many times have you fallen and got back up? How many times did you think it was over, but you carried on anyway? That's not weakness. That's strength. That's bravery. That's living faith. Even when everything in you said it was hopeless, you tried again. And that alone proves that there's still life in you. Still purpose. Still a fight. And where there is fight, there is still hope of victory. Nick Vujicic was born without arms and legs. He faced rejection, cruelty, and even considered ending his life. But he made a choice to press on. He chose to trust God, even when the pain made no sense. Today, his story moves millions around the globe. And why? Because he refused to stop. Even when he couldn't see the road, even when he didn't understand the purpose, he kept going. And God honored that. And what about you? Are you really going to stop now? After coming this far, after winning so many battles, what makes you believe that this is the end? Just because it's dark? Because it's tough? Because it's taking time? Darkness doesn't frighten those who walk by the light. Hardship doesn't hold back those who walk with God. Delay doesn't cancel the miracle. Everything happens in its own time. And yours is closer than you think. Set yourself a challenge. For the next 3 days, hold back from complaining. Refuse to give up. Simply affirm this: I'm nearer to my breakthrough than I realize. Say it even when it aches. Even through your tears. Even when your mind starts to betray you. Speak it out with belief. Because words carry power. And this declaration will begin to shift how you see things. You'll start to notice that God is still steering the course. And that your journey is far from over. You will overcome. You'll feel the weight lift. One day you'll look back and understand that every difficult step was part of the preparation. You'll be grateful you didn't give up. Because what God has for you isn't something small. It's not something ordinary. It's something so magnificent it requires you to be ready. And you are almost there. Just a little further. Don't let go. Don't drop your gaze. Don't shut your heart. Take a deep breath, raise your head, and keep going. What awaits you is just ahead. And it will be worth every tear, every painful moment, every quiet night, every act of endurance. You will live to tell the story. And when that time comes, you won't say, I won because I was strong, but rather, I made it because God held me up when I was on the verge of giving up. Maybe your chest feels tight right now, caught between sorrow and hope. Maybe you're holding back the tears, or perhaps they are already falling, and that's all right. What you're feeling is real. It's your spirit recognizing you're not alone. Despite every stumble, every fall, every sleepless night, there's still a greater force watching over you. You've endured things that many wouldn't even imagine. You've swallowed your cries when all you wanted was to scream. You put on a brave face so your loved ones wouldn't worry, even when you felt broken inside. And though you had every reason to give up, you didn't. You carried on. You're still here. That says everything. Maybe no one has ever said this to you. So allow me. I admire you. For your strength in continuing even when nothing made sense. For the heart that still believes in love despite all the wounds. For the faith that, though bruised, still whispers, I believe. That's something beautiful. That's sacred. And it doesn't matter what others have said. It doesn't matter how many times people doubted you, ignored you, judged you. Heaven knows your full story. And even with all of it, the mistakes, the weaknesses, the darkest days, God has chosen to love you just the same. He hasn't changed his mind about you. He hasn't walked away. And he never will. You are not invisible. Your prayers haven't gone unheard. Your tears have never been wasted. Every time you wept in the silence of your room, God was there, sitting beside you, embracing your soul when no one else could. And if you're hearing these words right now, it's because he wants you to understand. You are still going to live out the dreams he placed in your heart. You will still smile with the peace you've been longing for. One day, you'll look back and realize that what felt like the end was just the beginning. You'll rise again. You'll love again. You'll trust again. You'll see yourself the way your Creator does, with purpose, with beauty, with worth. Not because everything will magically fall into place, but because something new has already begun within you. You felt it, didn't you? So breathe. Let go of the burden. Allow yourself to be cared for. And if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this: you are loved, unconditionally, eternally, deeply. And what God has begun in your life, He will bring to completion. Until that day comes, hold tight to your faith, because what's waiting for you is far greater than anything you've lost. You're not just going to survive, you are going to bloom. And when that happens, you'll understand why you had to go through every step, and you'll see it was all worth it. Every single step, every day, every prayer, all of it, worth it.